Good evening, universe. Tonight I'm going to be doing my very first unhaul video. The reason that I'm doing this is mainly because my wife really wanted to use our coffee table as a coffee table rather than a additional receptacle for books. So in order to achieve that, I do have to clear out some of the books that I have been hanging on to for a while. But it also works out because there are some that I have already read and that I'm ready to let go of, or that I know that I'm probably not going to read, or that I just DNF'd. So let's get into it. The first book on this unhaul video is Dull Bones by Holly Black. I picked this up at an indie bookstore, and the reason that I picked it up was because I was feeling very pressured to buy something because I had been in there for like 40 minutes just kind of looking at stuff, and I felt really weird leaving without buying anything even though nothing was really like appealing to me. It was like a secondhand bookstore, so everything was like traded in, and there was nothing that was really calling out to me, and I got really anxious about it. So I was like, Holly Black, that's an author title, I know. This cover is terrifying, but that's probably fine. So I grabbed it and I purchased it and I left, and pretty much instantaneously I realized it was not really a book for me. So it's a middle grade book about like ghosts and this spooky doll, and the doll is, look at this doll, dude. I don't need that kind of energy in my life. Additionally, I read the first page. I was like, I'll give this a try. And I immediately was just instantaneously not feeling it. So yeah, that's Doll Bones. I hope that you remember the doll when you're trying to sleep. Next up is The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco. And I really have gone back and forth on this book so many times. So I read about 90% of this book, and honestly, it did not stick with me. I know vaguely the premise, but I don't feel like I internalized any of what I was reading. So I don't know if I just am not, clicking with this book, or if I just wasn't clicking with it at the time. But also none of the characters really stood out to me. And even though I really wanted to like this book and I love some of the concepts in it, I think it's just not for me. I will be trying some other books by Rin Chupeco, such as The Never Tilting World. That sounds super interesting and I definitely want to check that out. But The Bone Witch and the sequels are just not for me. And the next book, another one that I really wanted to like, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I have seen a lot of really opposing viewpoints on this book, whether it's beloved or just hated. And honestly, I don't really fall in either of those categories. I was just kind of underwhelmed. I really thought I would like this because I don't mind slower paced things, or at least I thought that I didn't. And that's really not what bothered me about this. I didn't like The Night Circus because I really did not like the main characters that much. I thought Celia was kind of boring and Marco is extremely annoying, and I would not want to know him in real life. I'll probably complain about this another time, but just in case I don't get another chance. So there's this one part, I'm not going to explain what this book is about, but I am going to tell you this very specific thing. There's this one part when Celia's friend dies. I'm not going to tell you who it was, but a friend of Celia's dies, and she's talking about how they did this particular thing together as part of their bond, kind of grieving, and it's just happened, right? This wound is very fresh. And Marco comes in with, I would have done that for you if I'd known you'd like it. And it's like, dude, this is not the time. Right now, it's grieving time. It's not, I'm so in love with Celia time. Now that's what we're talking about now. He was just annoying in every circumstance, and I didn't like him. And unfortunately, the rest of the novel wasn't exciting or endearing or enchanting enough to keep me going through it, especially because I also do not like comma splices, and there are a lot of them throughout this book. I know that prescriptive grammar is not always helpful, and I definitely think taking liberties with it is one of the most beautiful things that we can do with writing. That said, I just don't like it. It's not that I think it's wrong. It's just that I don't like it. And that sucks because I really love magical circusy stuff. I liked the basic idea of this. I guess I will tell you what it's about. It's about two magicians who set up a competition, which you don't get to know about, what the competition actually is, until I want to say at least halfway through. And this is not a short book. It's 550 pages, 500 pages, something like that. At least halfway through is how long it takes before you know what the competition fiction is even about. And like, there are definitely some really cool aspects of it, and the writing is really beautiful. So if you are okay with just kind of like hanging out in the Night Circus and reading these really lush descriptions and not super getting attached to the other things happening in the plot or in the character progression, then I would say this probably works out as a book for you, but it wasn't working for me. The next thing I am unhauling is the Arabian Nights. So I really wanted to be interested in reading this, but I basically am just not. Also, I think that I would like it more if the writing wasn't, microscopic. I'm old now. I need larger font. Look, I'm already wearing glasses. I don't need things. And also, I read in extremely low light because that's just how I am. And I'm not going to change that. So I need to do something else to offset the damage I'm doing to my eyes by not having these very tiny fonts. So maybe I'll read the Arabian Nights if I can find a version of it that isn't damaging to my vision. That said, I am vaguely interested in the stories. My roommate was reading it and was telling me things about it that he was enjoying, and that was cool and enjoyable, but it wasn't cool and enjoyable enough for me to keep this with its tiny, tiny font. Next, we have a couple of series, and the first one, if you have seen other videos on my channel, you'll probably recognize this. Books 4, 5, and 6 of the School for Good and Evil series, also known as the Camelot years of the School for Good and Evil series, which is basically just code for we'll mention the school, but like it's not actually, it's barely in the books. It's like a cameo appearance in these books, which is not the reason that I'm unhauling them, but it doesn't help. So the actual reason that I'm unhauling these is because I really enjoyed the first trilogy, mostly, except for book 2. Had some rough times, but I can get through book 2 in order to really enjoy book 3. I'm okay with that. Books 4, 5, and 6, I don't feel that they wasted my time. And I had a good time with them, but also I'm very annoyed with the way that they took a lot of the arcs of the characters that ended in book 3. So it's like 2 separate trilogies, right? And I really feel that it should have ended with the end of the first trilogy because the character progressions all felt really satisfying to me. And when we continued with them in this second trilogy, the endings that they came to were not as satisfying to me. We just didn't need to continue. Like, I think I would have enjoyed these stories a lot more if they had been about other characters, maybe set in the same world, but not Sophie and Agatha and Tedros, because I felt that their stories were concluded with book 3. Like I said, there were definitely some things I enjoyed about this, but not enough for me to read it again, unfortunately. And the more I think about them, the more irritated I get about particular things. So I'm going to go ahead and unhaul these bad boys. The last category of books that I will be unhauling are actually technically not mine. I said at the beginning of this that my wife really wanted a little bit more room. I told her that I would unhaul a bunch of my books if she unhauled some of hers, which in retrospect is kind of unfair because I have significantly more books than she does. That said, we will be unhauling. Can you see what that is from the knot spines? Here we go. If you can't tell what that is because of the shine from the light, these are the Dresden Files, books 1 through 10. So I've only read about 3 of these books, but basically what they're about is a crime-solving wizard. So he's in like a metropolitan type area. It's like a big city, and he's a private investigator, but also he's a wizard. So he has magical abilities to help out with his crime-solving, mystery-solving ways. Sometimes he works with the police, and he has other allies, and I think he has like a magical talking skull, maybe is a demon. I don't really remember. It's been a long time, but I really liked that concept. And my wife over the years has told me, because she followed the series pretty far, has told me a lot of the supernatural elements and the way that Jim Butcher works with them. And those were all really cool. I really enjoyed all the things that she told me. I thought the concepts were really neat and often very fresh in cool ways. I feel like fans of Supernatural would probably really really like this. Unfortunately, there were a couple things that just weren't working for me. I'm pretty sure this is on purpose, like an authorial choice, but Harry Dresden is has a very like male gaze going on. And so every time there's like a woman who it shows up, it's like extremely unnecessary breast descriptions and figure descriptions. And like, I get it, Harry, we've all been there, but this is not the time. And it feels gross. I think it's supposed to be a response to and reaction to the like noir crime novels that these kind of emulate, but with a supernatural element, because that is very common. When there's a private investigator, a lot of the times they're, this like hard-boiled guy and grizzled, and there's always like a femme fatale and a hot woman, and they describe her, in a very sexualized way. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here, because it sounds like in his other books, Jim Butcher doesn't really do that. So that's cool, and I appreciate that enough, I guess, but I still don't like it. It was annoying. And also, since my wife has told me a lot of the awesome concepts and things like that already, I feel like I've already gotten a lot of what the series has to offer for me specifically through that. Plus, we were reading them together, and over time, we've just found other things that we would rather be spending our together time doing. And so it's been at least 3 or 4 years since we've picked up one of these books, and because of that, we both decided that there's just not really a reason to keep them around. If we want to dive back into the series, we'll happily pick them up from the library. And that is going to be everything that I am unhauling today. Thank you for listening to me talk about them. I hope you enjoyed seeing these books that will no longer be living on my bookshelf. Say farewell for them, and most importantly, have a great night, universe.